Since I was last on air with you on Thursday, rather a lot has happened. The Privileges Committee obviously were finding against Boris Johnson. He decided not to put himself through the humiliation of a suspension from the Commons, a vote and possibly, or probably, a recall by-election in Uxbridge. And off he went, to be followed by, of course, Nadine Dorries and Nigel Adams. 3 by-elections now coming up for the Conservative Party. But also, of course, it was the whole question of honours, when names on Boris Johnson's resignation honours list were declined. Some of them politicians, others businessmen who appear to me to be quite blameless. But the war of words between Rishi Sunak and Boris Johnson has really intensified today. Here was Sunak speaking about the honours list this morning.
Boris Johnson asked me to do something that I wasn't prepared to do because I didn't think it was right. That was to, either overrule the HOLAC committee or to make promises to people. Now, I wasn't prepared to do that. As I said, I didn't think it was right. And if people don't like that, then tough.
Just think about that. He said he didn't think it was right. He's basically saying that what Boris Johnson was putting forward was dishonest. That's the dig that Sunak is getting in, and Boris Johnson has responded. He's responded by saying that the Prime Minister is talking rubbish. So we have a Conservative Party not just split, but possibly with some kind of civil war. And I'm very pleased to be joined by Sir Jake Berry, former chairman of the Conservative Party, and, of course, chairman of the Northern Research Group. Jake.
Come on, Nigel, I get all the good kicks. How can you respond to an introduction?
No, you're very brave for being here. Let's think about this. Johnson he's lost huge popularity in the country. He's more popular than Prince Andrew, but he has got a big negative rating, despite the great success of 2019. And he's now in a very minority position within your own party. I mean, Rishi and the establishment have won, haven't they?
I mean, undoubtedly, yes, they have. I mean, Boris, let's make no bones about it. He is an alpha politician of our generation in the way that many people are, including you, I might add. But, he is an alpha politician of our generation. He resigned. Clearly, we haven't seen what this committee's even said yet, but clearly it's going to be pretty critical with a significant suspension. Otherwise, I guess he wouldn't have done it. I'm not quite sure, actually, whether he's resigned because that was coming down the line or whether he just really doesn't have faith in the sort of the system that has been set up by him to investigate this, and whether he feels for some reason it's not quite acted in a way that he thinks is right. But I actually think one of the real tragedies is, of course, that platform that he had, and I think he used so well, to fight for the North of England, as you say, I'm former chairman of the Northern Research Group, to fight for the North of England.
And the North is crucial, isn't it?
He's lost that by resigning. I think that's a great pity. I think he's a loss to Parliament. And, political popularities go up and down. And my own personal view is that if he was still Prime Minister, he would have recovered. But he's not.
But he's not. And the Conservative Party is across a whole range of issues. I mean, partly when he was there, but certainly under Sunak, it now looks like a globalist party. There is no prospect of diverging from EU rules. A deal on Northern Ireland has been done, which permanently cuts Northern Ireland off, or certainly for the foreseeable future, from the rest of the country. We've got Hunt in the Treasury. We've got the highest tax burden for 71 years. We've got big state. And Boris Johnson said very clearly in that resignation letter that Sunak was taking it in a direction that wasn't conservative. Now, you've coined a phrase, a word for all of this. Blobonomics. Explain blobonomics to us.
Well, it's sort of... I mean, if the Conservative Party wants to get back to winning ways, we have to cut tax. It's just really is that simple. Tax is far too high. I knocked on a pensioner's door in Darwin last Thursday when I was doing my weekly street surgery, and he came to the door and said, "I'll never vote for you again. I have a £20 a year private pension," and you started taking tax away from it. And blobonomics, I think, is a sort of... it's a sort of bizarre fiscal idea by the Treasury that actually the way you sort of grow the economy is cutting tax, but increasing tax. So, of course, on the one hand, they say to us, you're far too fat, so we're going to put tax on sugar. You smoke too much, we're going to put tax on tobacco, and you all like a bit of a drink, we're going to put tax on alcohol. They accept, and by the way, they're right, that when you increase tax on things, it discourages people from doing it. doing it. But you can't then say that putting up corporation tax or increasing personal tax is going to grow the economy.
Because you discourage entrepreneurs.
But those two things can't be right. And that is blobonomics. It is basically a broken political ideology that is, pushed by London and the centre. We feel it in the north of England. For years we haven't had the investment we wanted. It's a broken political ideology. And if we want to win the next election, we have to break it down. We need to blow up blobonomics and get back to levelling up.
The trouble is, the blobonomics types are now in total control of the Conservative Party. The Eurosceptics, the people like you that believe in free enterprise very, very strongly, you're now marginalised. I mean, can we expect a by-election in Rosendale and Darwin?
No, absolutely not. I have been reselected by my brilliant local association. I will be fighting that election as a Conservative because I am fighting for what I believe in. I believe in the north of England, which is why I served as Northern Powerhouse Minister and actually designed the levelling up policy for Boris. I believe in low tax, I believe in free enterprise, and I'm going to keep fighting for that. And I think, look, what the Conservative Party is really good at, we've shown over decades, is working out how to win. We're now at a point we've got 3 by-elections. If we want to get ahead in those by-elections, we've got to stop talking about being the party of low tax and start being the government of low tax.
Come on. There's a civil war going on between this giant figure of Boris Johnson and a Prime Minister with considerable support within the party, if not in the country. And the party, in the end, isn't big enough for both of them, is it?
And one of them's gone. And the thing about Friday... Friday, maybe gone for now, who knows, as he says. But the thing about Friday is you did have 3 people who could potentially be the Prime Minister of this country. It's now down to 2. It's Rishi Sunak or Sir Keir Starmer, to give him his full title. And as Conservatives and as the Conservative MP, I am going to fight my guts out to make sure that the person who walks up Downing Street is number 10.
Boris Johnson, a man that you've supported so strongly, has, without a fight, virtually gifted the Uxbridge constituency to the Labour Party. He's now seen by some in the Conservative Party to have committed a sort of act of treachery, a mutiny. He's encouraged 2 others to do the same thing. There are calls within your party for him never to be allowed to stay again. He's going to be driven out of that party completely, isn't he?
Well, I think that would be a terrible mistake for the party, and I was asked earlier today whether I thought he should be able to stand. I mean, the idea that the Conservative Party would block the most successful Conservative Prime Minister we have seen since Margaret Thatcher standing at election is for the birds. It's certainly not something I would support. It's not something I would support.
You saw how Rishi Sunak put the knife in on the stage this morning, the words that he used. That's vicious stuff.
But we've got to move beyond it. We've got these 3 by-elections. They are a big test for the Prime Minister. I believe in this bold Conservative vision, attack and change the status quo. And look, if you effectively say the only thing you're going to achieve as government is stabilise things, well, that's OK, unless things are bloody terrible to start with.
Stability of failure.
Teachers are on strike, trains don't work. So we've got to move beyond that. We've got to sell that positive vision. Rishi is the man to do it.
I don't think that Boris has a future inside politics. His one big legacy of Brexit may well be under threat halfway through the next Labour government. I believe he may have to work outside the Conservative Party, but I could be wrong about that. It's just my feeling. But let me ask you. I just asked our audience, and I saw Rishi Sunak in Dover last week talking total and utter
blobonomics.
And knowing he was talking to... I may use that now. And I went today to prove that it's absolute nonsense. Do you trust Rishi?
Yeah, I do. I trust him to
you don't
do
really,
the... Do you? No, I do. Come on, don't put words in my mouth. I trust him to put the hard work in. But, this is a big test for him. And, I would call, and there are lots of colleagues calling who support him. They want the Conservative Party to succeed. We want him to succeed as our Prime Minister, to come out with some bold Conservative policies, be a Conservative government that cuts taxes, gets hold of immigration.
He's not going to do any of that, and you jolly well know that. And I'm sick to death of hearing this cut immigration. I've heard it since 2010 at every election. It's now at record levels, both legally and illegally. I mean, why should people vote for this failing Conservative Party?
Well, because we need to persuade them that our bold vision for Britain, which, if you live in the north of England, you can already say that through levelling up, and I know it's a pejorative term, or Northern Powers, or whatever you want to call it, your lives are changing. Go to Rosendale and Darwin, see the skylines change. Go to Darlington, go anywhere in the north of England. We need to say to people, look, we have done that. Unfortunately, elections, you often don't get credit for what you've done, but we have done a lot. But what we need to do is capture their hearts and minds with what we will do for them next. And I'm sorry, maintenance of status quo isn't going to do that. We as a Conservative Party need to go beyond it.
Well,
and, you know, that is the key to success.
Sir Jake Berry, it's perfectly clear what you believe. You are what I would label as a Conservative in a party that is increasingly not particularly Conservative. But thank you for joining us this evening.